Blog Talk Radio. And this is Yaya, always daring to be different. Right here on Dream Chasers Radio. We don't have the normal people here. Never will, never will, never will. The questions that you've always wanted to ask, those are the questions I'm going to ask our guests as you join us here on Dream Chasers Radio. And the next guest that we have tonight, and we've been pretty busy since I come back on the air, I've had awesome guests, and you want to go back and listen to each one because each one has something to offer you in the goal aspect of what we're doing here on Dream Chasers. And today we have Marilyn. She is a spiritual teacher. She's a writer. She'll tell you what she is. Marilyn, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Yaya. I'm just really thrilled that I got invited, and I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, Marilyn, of course, this is Dream Chasers, and here we are chasing our dream to tackle it and put it under submission and take it with us under our arms. And I wanted to ask you a few questions, and thank you for being on the show. How did you become a spiritual counselor and a spiritual teacher? What led you to that?
Well, I think my dreams led me to that. I had been a very, very good victim all my life, being raised in a childhood of abuse and domestic violence and in a marriage of domestic violence and abuse. And so I was looking for answers because I tried suicide and my husband tried to kill me. It was a pretty messy affair, and so my dream was to not ever be a victim again. So as I started outgrowing my victimization, I found tools, I found answers that will work for everybody. And so I was teaching classes in the junior college for personal growth and empowerment, and somebody came up to me and said in class one day, well, I'm a retired teacher, and she said, well, do you ever counsel? And are you a counselor? And I kind of gulped and thought, well, gee, everything I've done all my life is one form of, when you're teaching, you're kind of counseling. So I just said yes, and she started coming as a client. So then I started getting some training, and I became an ordained spiritual minister for counseling, and I got trained in regression therapy. I'm internationally board trained for regression for all parts of your life, including past lives. And I'm on the American Board of Hypnosis, so I can go into your childhood, I can go into your body consciousness and heal from the energy of inside and tell you how, your body wants to be healthy, and it will tell you what to do. So, I came into this because I wanted to help others learn what I've learned, and it's worked for me. So the counseling, I started writing about what I was finding, and have quite a few books now on Amazon.com, 7 books, and a new one ready to come out before the end of the year. So I have done classes with what's in my books and teaching people personal growth and spiritual growth, and also holistic health, because you have to have a good, healthy body to sustain your life, even if your personal life is growing and expanding so that the outside life isn't victimizing you anymore. You still need a healthy body. So, it's all kind of just flowed together. It's like when one door opens, and fortunately, I actually have become fearless lately, and when the door opens, I just kind of go in and start finding out what else, opportunities are available and what new sources are there that are interested, and take advantage of it. I'm a lot more brave today than I used to be.
I hear you. Well, that's an amazing, story of overcoming the obstacles that
were presented to you from the moment that you can realize that you were a separate entity than your parents. However, I do have one question. And it's a very valuable question. It's a very valid question because we have a lot of women that are in abuse. A lot of women that are in abuse. Mm-hmm. What did you find was the most dangerous moment when you tried to leave? What was that moment? What did you do in that instant to get away?
Well, my story is a little different than most people. I didn't leave. He did. I discovered when he was trying to attack me one night, I had a spiritual experience, and the short story of it was I was told to pray for him. God forgive him, for he knows not what he does. And then I said, God bless him. And in this period of time, it felt like time stood still, and I was given that message like the silent voice inside. And everything just was standing still, and he was in the room like a statue. Angels held him, so he couldn't come closer. And I'm scared, still spitless, didn't know what to do, quaking in my boots, literally. And so I said it again, God forgive him, for he knows not what he does. God bless him. And I was told to leave the room. And I said, oh, you got to be kidding. This is a tiny little bedroom I'm cornered in, and I'll have to walk right by him to get out. So I was escorted by spirit out of the room, turned around to see what was going to happen behind me. The look on his face was I wish I'd had a camera. It was absolutely indescribable. He went off to the other end of the house and left me alone, and I started praying for him, and I discovered that when you send love, nobody can hurt you. It's like a protective shield. If you're not sending out attacks, there's nothing to attack back. So it's a passive-aggressive game. And I discovered I was married not just to an alcoholic, but he was also a psychopath, a rageaholic, and sex addict. And so when I discovered that psychopaths can't handle love, he's the one that left, because as I got more empowered and I was going to Al-Anon and taking classes and getting counseling, and as I was getting stronger in who I was and getting self-esteem and tools to live my life, I was emotionally 3 years old at this point, and I'm starting to grow up, and he's still a little kid, and he's not growing up, and ultimately he's the one that left. I'm probably the only domestic violent person that stayed in the house and got the house in the divorce.
Wow. I have to say that the most dangerous moment for you, and I'm gonna tell you what it was, if you don't mind, was your choice.
Oh. Well, that's an interesting thing, because I was so scared and panicky at the time it happened. This occurred, and I have choice today, and then I started to take the choice to start praying for him all the time. Mm-hmm. Yes, we do have choice. At that particular moment, I still didn't know about choice. I think if you're a really good victim and you've always done what you were told, in my case, I was never allowed to have choice growing up or in my marriage. It was all their way or the highway. And so in this case, God literally stepped in and just took over and told me, what I went through a series of things to find out that I needed to say that particular verse, God forgive him, for he knows not what he does. And so it happened to me as a way. I've been very fortunate in getting tools and answers for how to come out of being a victim through meditation and the voice within. So I'm oftentimes given answers, and I don't always know where, all of a sudden I know what to do. And today I can take that and make that a choice today to stay in that mode of sending love to others, because that's what I like coming back today. But in those days, it took me a couple years to understand. I was so scared from all the abuse I'd been through, I was actually attacking him subconsciously. Trying to defend myself is really like a bullet to the other person. And I had to do a lot of what we call inventory work in the 12 steps and start to get rid of my anger, rid of my fear, and rid of trying to protect myself, because that's what was continuing the game. And when you become defenseless and when you become a person who is not sending out your protection to somebody else, and they can't hurt you. And that's your protection, is to be strong in the love of who you are and empower yourself. So, people who attack others, they're sick and immature people themselves, and they look for another sick and immature person, and the two of them play out this passive-aggressive game. And so when you become assertive, when you're becoming rational and healthy in mind and body and spirit, then you're not playing the game anymore. So it's taken me actually 30 years to uncover all the fears and all the angers, and they go very, very deep, because that's part of why I became a past life regressionist, is our energy is not just what we see on the conscious level. It's like an iceberg. There's a lot of subconscious information that's also running our lives, and I've discovered it's what you don't know about yourself that's the problem, and to get rid of that and clean it out, it's kind of like the Rotor-Rooter service, and clean out that inner old messages of protecting yourself and finding the love inside that you don't have to protect yourself. God protects you. So if you're looking for love, it's actually inside your heart, and it's not necessarily the person outside that's giving you harm or you thought you were in love with or whatever. Their love is just as depleted as yours has been. And when I started loving myself, then that's when things really changed.
That is amazing. That is an amazing story. I tell you, because it doesn't happen all the time like that. And you were blessed. You were definitely blessed with a situation that was already handled. And that's a blessing within itself. Now, I do have one question.
Yeah.
Your book. What are your books about? I mean, are they self-help books? Are they about getting out of things? I mean, what are your books about?
Well, they are self-help books, but they're also very practical with tools that you can actually put into your life so that you can release the fear. Some people say fear is false emotions appearing real. And when you are in fear, you stay being that victim. And so my books and my writing are about becoming empowered and releasing the fear so that you can outgrow that. And being a retired teacher, we used to have a little newspaper in the classroom, and I was teaching one day, and on the cover of the little newspaper was a chart, and it listed all the fears and the ages of when you outgrow them. I wish I'd start because, today I have outgrown my fears, but in those days I still had, childhood fears in adulthood. I had not outgrown them. So our ego has really been running our lives. Ego is edging God out. There's no love. It's just a fear-based life. And that's really an insane life, because when you're coming from fear, you're irrational. And you do a lot of irrational things, and those are things that come back and then bite you. So when you start sending out positive energy, then that energy of love comes back and starts manifesting and actually enhancing, so that the spirit enhances and expands, and that's love. So every time you can expand your energy, that's a loving force, and it's very powerful. It's more powerful than the fear. So all my writing is about different aspects of how to release the fear and anger. Some people say resentments because you've had them for a long time. And how to release all that negative energy that's actually creating your problems. And the only thing I can change is me. I can't change other people, I found out. So I wanted a healthy relationship. So I was told by the silent voice inside that I had to become the person I wanted in my relationship. So I had to start changing me and growing up, and I wanted a spiritual person. I wanted someone that had integrity and loyalty and honesty and sincerity in their lives. And so I started trying to incorporate more and more of that in my life and releasing what wasn't giving me that. Some people call this life let go and let God. So the more I let go of what wasn't the real me and let that love come in, who is what I was created in, the love of the Spirit. And so I started changing. And, there's a story about Michelangelo making a statue out of marble. And he said to Michelangelo, how do you know which parts to chip away and so that you'll have the statue of David? And Michelangelo says, well, I just chip away at the parts that aren't David.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Now, we can get your books. Where can they find your books?
Well, my books are on Amazon.com, and I just recently had 3 anthologies that were published this last year. I have a chapter in each anthology. They're books about success. The first anthology is about success in your business and career, and I have a chapter in there. I was included. And there's a second anthology is about success in your life, and I have a chapter in that particular book. And then the last chapter tells my story, the last book, I mean, of how I moved out of being that victim into having a thriving life today. And so it's people can hear, I actually have walked through the shadow of death, you might call it, on earth and come out on the other side. So, sometimes when people hear someone else has done it, they can say, well, I can do it too then.
Mm. And what are your websites that people can go to and look? Is it Marilyn with Marilyn, Redmond Books? Marilyn.
Well, actually, my website is Angelica's Gifts because I have an angel called Angelica, and her spiritual gifts are what helps me do my counseling and helps me do my writing. It's all spiritually inspired. So Angelica's Gifts, ANGELIASGIFTS.com. If they go on Google, Marilyn Redmond will show up, and they can find my website. They can find me on Google. Not Google, but YouTube. I have a lot of YouTubes for interviews, but also lectures. In fact, I have some video lectures on YouTube about domestic violence and also about empowerment. So when we discover that there are answers and we can walk out of this, and I have some really good solutions that people can understand. I also have a 4-part interview on domestic violence, which explains in detail what domestic violence is, the dynamics of it, and how to walk out of it. So I also have a blog, and that's Marilyn Redmond's Books at blogspot.com. So I have a lot of ways that people can access me, and I love to help people.
Awesome. I mean, when we were talking before the show, you said some very important things. And the one important thing was, that you no longer are a victim. How does a person coming from that victimization mentality, how do they get, if you were to help them, how would they get from one place to the other?
That is a really profound question, and there's a lot of answers to it. Our lives are kind of layered, so we learn in layers, and we learn in it's a process. So it's a little by little, step by step. What I first had to do was to get honest and real with myself, that I really needed to get out of my victimization. In my case, it was do or die. He was trying to kill me. In my case, I literally prayed, God, please help me. I don't want to die. And doors started opening for counseling and treatment. I've been to 12-step groups. I went to codependency groups and adult children of alcoholic groups, which are 12 steps. And I went to counseling, and I've really gone into a lot of spiritual work. So because what was missing is I was not raised and nurtured in my growing up. So I found a spiritual group, and I get involved with spiritual groups because they support and love me, which is not what I had growing up. And so I put myself in places that were healthy for me. One of the things that's very helpful is to find affirmations to affirm the truth of who you are. I'm really big on affirmations. I use them daily. And I also, through my counseling, came into understanding how profound flower essences are. They're homeopathic. They're liquid. You digest them. And the flower essences, the energy in the flower, and they help to shift the negative energy out of your thinking and body and emotions and let that love come into the spaces then created. So you can literally shift your emotional life with flower essences, and I love using those with my clients. There's the book coming out at the end of the year, Paradigm Busters is going to have the step-by-step process of where you go through being honest with yourself and coming into hope, coming into faith, and taking inventories of yourself of what is not working for you and releasing those fears and angers so that you have space for the love that you really want in your life to manifest. And it's in our hearts. It's always been there. It's just been covered up by all the calamity we went through. So as we peel away the onion, as some people say, and keep peeling and peeling of what we don't want in our life and putting in what we do want, in my case I ask for love and grace to replace it, and gradually you grow into that. It's a little by little your energy starts getting more positive, you start feeling more empowered, you start feeling more like who you really are, and that you have the courage to do the things necessary to take those steps and to make those choices, because it's really a disease of no talk, no trust, and no feelings. And so to be able to have the strength and courage to make those choices is very important, and to trust the universe will support you in it, and to communicate it with healthy people that you are then in recovery with, hopefully, and to be able to have feelings. I didn't have any feelings. The doctors had medicated me, and I had to get off all prescriptions, all toxic substances, alcohol, and any. I try not to even eat food that's toxic or GMO, because all of those things actually do separate me from the love of connecting with that higher power. And I wanted to have a sane and sober body today that's clean, and so that I can have all the love in my life that is already there for me, and it was always there. I just didn't see it. So it's like today I can see the invisible, I can hear the invisible, and, you know, I have eyes today and ears to hear what I couldn't see and hear before.
And I do have to say that, you know, when you peel an onion, expect some tears.
You're exactly right. When we move into the truth, it can be very sharp and very lots of tears, because we believed a fantasy that, you know, in my case, I don't know, you know, I'm much older than you, I know, and I was raised that you get married and you live happily ever after and have the white picket fence. And when you discover that that's not how life works, there's a lot of tears.
Yes, definitely. And I commend you, because a lot of people don't go after after this. They don't to realize how much damage they're doing to themselves by just not, affirming who they really are. And I find that very important. Marilyn, we only have 7 minutes. Now, I told you this goes by really, really quickly. 30 minutes, and, it does. But I wanted to find out, what are your goals? I want to know what the future holds for Marilyn.
Well, that's an interesting question. Goals are third-dimensional. They're from the material world. So in my case, I've kind of given up having goals as such, because it seems like opportunities come to me that are the right ones for me, and I accept them, and I try to take them on and work with those, and things just kind of start opening up and blossoming and blooming. And so what I've learned is to have spiritual ideals. And as I raise my consciousness into higher and higher levels of love, in the Bible they call it Jacob's Ladder, as I raise my loving energy higher and higher, that's my goal today, is to ascend out of the darkness, out of the peat bog, or all the terrible things that happened, the trauma, the drama, to share the message that we can all do that we can all raise our consciousness into love. And my goal is if I can do it, then other people can do it. I try to be an example. And so that's my goal, is am I the best example of love today in my life, and others can hopefully learn from that and take what they want and leave the rest. But, so many times we're around people that are very judgmental and very critical. That's the background I came from. And I try today, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying to learn to give unconditional love and to not be critical and judgmental of others. So my goal is to raise my consciousness.
Awesome. Now, there's one thing I have to ask you. If you had one thing that you wanted people to know, what would that one thing, in a counseling session, be? You don't want them to leave without knowing this. What would this be?
Well, that's a good question. To know that the love that you were born with is in your heart. It's only been covered up. And if God is the King of Kings, then you are either the prince or the princess, and to start treating yourself like one.
Mhm. It's amazing. The message is just liberating, and yet so hard to take for some people. Why is that?
Sadly, our culture perpetuates fear. It's on the television, it's on the news, it's in the movies, it's in our entertainment. Our medicine field says, I was told at one point that I'd take this medicine and have to be mentally ill for the rest of my life, and I've been declared sane and I don't take medicines. Churches say, well, you're a sinner. Well, I've discovered God loves me and I'm in His image. So we've been told through many parts of our lives that we're not good enough, and that we're just not we're just not good enough. We don't have any worth, and people discount us and shame us and make us feel guilty, or we take on the guilt. And all of that's just a game for them to control us, and we don't have to buy into that. When we raise out of that into the love for ourselves and love around others, love our neighbors as ourselves, we discover that there's nothing wrong with us. We're perfectly decent people, and we've been okay all our lives. And so to claim that and rejoice in it and celebrate, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't listen to people that tell you otherwise. Find new friends.
I approve of that message 150%. That is the key to begin the change. I truly believe in positive energy. Positive energy begets positive energy, and negative energy begets negative energy. And
exactly.
It's in the scriptures. It says, as a man thinketh, so he is.
Exactly.
You think bad about yourself, you think down about yourself, so you are. There you are. That is it. That's your existence. But you can pull yourself up. You can pull yourself out. And Marilyn, I believe that you have done that. You have done what most people want to do, and they dream about it, and they fantasize about it, but they never realize, just like Dorothy in The Wiz and The Wizard of Oz,
right.
Click your heels 3 times and say, there's no place like home. And how did she get home? By thinking. And I know that's kind of funny because, I just love, I love movies and I love the fact that the mind is way more powerful than we give it credit.
Amen to that. Our thinking makes our reality.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Our thinking makes our reality, so all we have to do is change our thinking.
That's it. We have 90 seconds, Marilyn. Is there anything else you want your listeners to know? And please, let them know where they can find you again, please.
Oh, my website is angelicasgifts.com. My YouTube lectures and all kinds of information are on YouTube. They can check me out there. They can go to Amazon.com and check out my books and ebooks. And I'm also have a blog at marilynredmondbooks.blogspot.com. And so, or just Google Marilyn Redmond, and they'll find me off of the Google search. So I'm out there and available, and I just love to help people understand that they can do it and it's possible.
Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. And like I told you before, this time frame of 30 minutes is always never enough. But thank you, Marilyn. And everyone, please go to Marilyn's site and get in contact with her. She would love to help you and to show you how much more you are than what you believe.
Exactly.
This has been Yaya and Marilyn from Dream Chasers Radio tonight. We want to wish you a wonderful dream. Be blessed. Marilyn, thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate it. If you have anything other than what you have, when you have more stuff coming up, please get in contact with us. We would love to have you back, okay?
Oh, I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. All right, Marilyn, and everyone out there, be safe, and remember, you are somebody. Good night.
Good night.